Hey everyone, I'm Andy Petronic, and this is the Whole Life Challenge podcast. It's the place we connect with extraordinary people, ones who think differently, who have risen to the top of their field, who have vast knowledge, experience, and insights to share, as well as incredible stories to tell. They are also the ones who have figured out a way to take their life's experience and turn it into something that truly makes a difference in the world for others. These are their stories. Hey gang, it's Andy Petronic, and welcome back to the Whole Life Podcast. This is episode number 128, and today my guest is the founder of The Good Kitchen. Her name is Amber Lewis. Now, before I get into more details about Amber, let me tell you some big news. And something I shared last week, I have a new website, and it is, wait for it, andypetronic.com. Super original. Well, it might not be original, but at least it's findable. The idea behind the website was to create a place where my newsletter could exist. So if you go to the home page and you want to subscribe to the newsletter, that's where you do it. The purpose of the newsletter was to share my learnings of the month, basically. Short, pithy, bulleted, easy to digest, things to explore, things to learn, products I'm trying, apps I'm experimenting with, songs I'm listening to, things I wanted to share with my friends, my family, my extended community in very bite-sized, digestible formats, or a format. And so it's easy reading, and you can watch it or listen to it or link to it or go to it whenever you want. It comes once a month only, not going to bombard your inbox, on the first of the month. And I got some great feedback from the first one. Some of my friends, friends are supposed to give you feedback, but I actually ask my friends to give me honest feedback, and they loved it. I mean, they thought it was, like I said, light and easy to get through, and very helpful. So check it out if you want. Your choice, of course. Let me get back to the podcast. Guess what? It's available on Spotify. So if you're listening to music and you want to bombard your family with learnings from health and the health and fitness world, you can tune in Spotify. You can tune into the Whole Life Podcast on Spotify. I prefer to listen to my podcasts on Overcast. That's really my app of choice on the iPhone. But you can also listen to it on the native podcast app, the Apple app. There are a lot of ways now to listen to podcasts. But yeah, Spotify is one of the new ways that it's available. And the next piece, we have a sponsor. The sponsor of the Whole Life Challenge and the podcast is The Good Kitchen. And that's right. You heard it right. Amber Lewis is the founder of The Good Kitchen, and she's on the podcast today. And that's not a coincidence, people. The Good Kitchen provides prepared meals that are sustainably sourced, that are organic, that are Whole Life Challenge compliant, that conform with paleo and keto and various other diet structures that exist in the world. They're delivered right to your door via FedEx. You can get them once a week. You can get them once every 2 weeks. They go in your fridge. You open them up. I don't even heat them up. I just eat them. They're delicious. When you heat them up, rumor has it they're even deliciouser. And it's really one of the best things I've done for myself is get my lunches taken care of, so I don't have to think. I don't have to think where I'm going to go. I don't have to think preparation. I don't have to really think anything. It's really awesome. If you can afford it, it's not even that expensive. By the way, if you want to, if you're a first-time customer, you get 15% off your first order if you use this link, thegoodkitchen.com/WLC. thegoodkitchen.com/WLC. And that's that. So, Let me tell you a little bit about our guest today. Oh, first, we got some great guests coming up. Martin Gabala, he's the best-selling author of the 1 Minute Workout. Ryan Muncie, Diana Rogers. Oh, and I just found out Michael Gervais, not Ricky Gervais, Michael Gervais, he's a renowned sports psychologist. He works with some of the most high-profile athletes in the world. He helped Felix Baumgartner when he jumped out of basically it was a spacecraft. It was a balloon-launched spacecraft where he base jumped with a spacesuit on. He helped him get through some pre-flight jitters, some serious jitters, some jitters that might have stopped the entire operation from actually happening. But I'm going down to meet with him, and he's going to be on the podcast, which I'm super excited about. Today is Amber Lewis. Amber is, she's really just a visionary. I mean, she knew enough back in 2011 or so when she started the Good Kitchen that there was a need that people had for prepared meals that would help them stay more accountable to eating well in their life. People weren't necessarily eating poorly because they were just choosing badly. They were eating poorly because they weren't prepared and because it wasn't easy to eat well. And she started making meals in her kitchen for her husband, and then she started making meals for her friends who saw the meals her husband was eating, and it basically just snowballed. She did this she built this in the Charlotte area and was doing deliveries locally, and then decided had almost a huge a massive problem with one of their orders, and then decided, hey, we got to change this, and we got to go by FedEx. And now she ships all over the world. I'm sorry, believe it's only in the United States. So you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'll correct myself if I'm wrong. But she ships all over the United States, and the food is delicious. Really, the point of this podcast was to find out more from her. What's the story? How'd she do this? How did she take this idea from idea form into business form? And then what are some of the things that she does to keep her life on track so that her life is doable? We talk about her meditation practice. We talk about her workout practice. We talk about, in terms of the business, we talk about things like delivery systems and vacuum sealing and, oh gosh, what else? We talk about the delivering to the gym when she first started. It's really, really a fun conversation to learn more about, just kind of the entrepreneurial spirit and what it takes to build a business like this. And if you're an entrepreneur or ever have had an idea about something, the big thing I took from Amber's story is just start. Start little. Don't think you got to change the world tomorrow. Start with just changing yourself, changing your life, changing the lives of people around you. See if people like it first. And that's probably the best and even safest way to begin the journey of changing the world. I mean, that's how we started the Whole Life Challenge. We didn't create some big, crazy software platform. We tried to change the lives of the 150 people that we had in our gym. And that was it. So that's what's coming on this podcast. Now, every week I have been announcing a fan of the week because I am committed to growing this podcast. And one of the best ways for the podcast to grow is through reviews on iTunes. If you're so inclined to leave a review, if you're getting a lot out of this podcast, please go to iTunes and leave a review. The easiest way to do that is to use this link, bit.ly/WLC-podcast. That will actually open up iTunes for you. You'll have to navigate to the review section, and then don't just leave a 4 or 5 star review. Actually write something. And hopefully, if you're lucky, I will pick your review as the fan of the week. If I do, hit me up, let me know by email, and you'll get a free t-shirt on me. Of course it's on me. It wouldn't be on anybody else. So you'll get a free t-shirt. The email address is podcast@wholelifechallenge.com. So the fan of the week this week is Jeremiah T. Reynolds. It's short, sweet, to the point. Here we go. Andy's positive energy, inquisitive mind, and infectious laughter make this a must-listen podcast. Boom. Thank you, Jeremiah. I really appreciate you taking the time to leave the review. And remember, if you are listening to this podcast, hit me up with an email and I'll get you out a t-shirt. I appreciate this greatly, as does the rest of the world, because if you get a lot out of this podcast, guess what? The people that are finding out about it because of all the reviews are also grateful. And so thank you in advance for taking the time to do it. I really, really appreciate it. And last but not least, the Whole Life Challenge is almost done. It's funny because it's only 6 weeks this time, and we're at the 4-week point. We got 2 weeks to go. I'm already getting into feeling like, wow, it's not been that long, and we're already talking about it almost being done. I'm going to finish strong into the last week of the challenge. I'm also getting ready for the 6-week off period, knowing that I'm going to start again in April. So it really serves, so far, this experiment we're running is serving me well. So I look forward to finding out how it's serving our players, hopefully by seeing a lot of people join us again in April, because the idea is that you do this on a regular, consistent basis. The on and off cycle is what leads to long-term transformation, long-term growth. That's what it's all about. Listen, enough of me yapping. I've been going on for 11 minutes, and that's enough. So let's get on with the episode. Here we go. Get ready for the one, the only Amber Lewis of The Good Kitchen. Well, let's get started. Amber Lewis, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
I will have people already know who you are because I have recorded an intro.
Okay.
Not like now we're recording the podcast, but there's an intro that came that you haven't heard.
So they already know me.
They already know you. So what's the point? We don't even need to do the podcast. We're done.
Okay, it was nice talking to you.
So you're the founder and creator of The Good Kitchen.
Yes, correct.
And it's really a pleasure to have you on. I want to hear a lot about the story like behind The Good Kitchen, because, every business that's run by an entrepreneur or small business has a story, and the stories are so compelling, and especially when they're in the realm of like food, nutrition and where it comes from, because there's so many elements that go into doing what you do. And where would you like to start? I'm open to anything, and I'll just ask you questions, and we'll keep going.
Awesome. I love it. Well, I'm Amber Lewis. I am co-founder of The Good Kitchen. I'm the original founder of the brand modPALEO, which is what we rebranded from in 2017. So back in 2011, I was a member of a CrossFit gym. I went and got my level 1 certification. I was coaching. My husband was coaching. And we decided to move back to Charlotte, North Carolina. And we had, along the way, been in Atlanta, where we had learned about this whole paleo thing. And when we got to Charlotte, the paleo wave had not gotten here yet. So we were the weird people that didn't eat bread or tortilla chips at the Mexican restaurant. And everybody would ask us, what's the deal with that?
Right.
And so we started talking about this lifestyle of eating, and we had both seen a really significant change in our health just by changing the way that we were eating. So we cut out all processed carbs and got really strict with paleo, the paleo template. Did a 30-day challenge just within our household, and then we started talking to people about it and talking about the digestive issues that I had for many, many years and been diagnosed with everything under the sun, and none of the medication.
Can you go into some details? Sure. Like what was because that was my next question: is did your husband and you have reason to experiment with diet with this paleo thing?
Well, the original thing, I guess, from a nutrition standpoint, health standpoint, was my family history of heart disease. My every female in my family had had a heart attack by the time they were 40. And
Wow.
which is really, like, that's really young to have a heart attack. And then you take a female,
Right,
and
totally.
then every female in my family had had a heart attack by the time they were 40. My mom was 40. She passed away at 59. My grandmother was in her 30s. She passed away at 56. And then I've got several aunts that had had some kind of heart-related issues. And some folks, even passing away in their 30s from some kind of degenerative heart issue. And so I really, once I got into my late 20s, early 30s, really started thinking about, I need to change my lifestyle and get active and pay attention to what I'm eating, because I didn't really want to follow, the path that they had all gone down. And, but I'd always had these underlying digestive issues. And I just thought maybe it was, I had an acidic problem, like tomatoes would always upset my stomach. And so I would really focus on like more of the acidity of the food. And once we cut out all of the gluten and the soy, all of a sudden I magically didn't have digestive issues any longer. And I had been diagnosed with IBS. They had always tested me for ulcers and just different conditions. And they would just give me medications, but never really look at my diet, which was amazing to me. Because you think I have this raging heartburn that I can't eat when my stomach's upset. But they never said hey, let's take a look at what you're eating. And
it's interesting, just to interject real quick. I just had Dr. Jason Fung on the podcast, who big intermittent fasting guy. He's a nephrologist, kidney doctor. And he talked about that. He talked about how resistant doctors are to going outside of what's known and to turning to nutrition to answer the problems that they've been prescribing things for, partly because it's a habit, and they don't want to go back against the grain of what they've been preaching or professing for the last 10, 15, 20 years.
Right.
And it's a problem.
Yeah. And I think, the habit part is a big one. And I feel like, with medicine, and especially Western medicine, they don't really have other resources other than what they were taught in medical school.
Right.
And nutrition is such a small part of that. And I think now it's starting to become more and more important, and people are really starting to look outside of what just their, regular medical teachings are. I mean, you see so many physicians now that are actually getting out of a typical practice for that reason, so that they can go out and learn other modalities to help their patients, because as much as our food system is broken, our medical system is broken as well. And, it really is up to the patient to figure out what works best for them.
Right.
And going through everything that I went through with my mom and her health issues, I mean, she heart attack at 40. And I mean, every 6 months we were in the hospital with some other kind of, open heart, some kind of stent, some kind of bypass, and she, I think when she was about 56, she was finally diagnosed with an autoimmune disease that was actually causing the issue. Wow. And so, had we had that knowledge when she first had her heart attack, I mean, her quality of life would have been much different. Yeah. But it took that long, and just where kind of medicine was heading, for her she actually went to a naturopath, a DO, and she was the one that diagnosed her with Hashimoto's. And so, that's a manageable autoimmune disease with nutrition and supplements. And so, that really kind of spurred my passion for learning more and more about nutrition and the concept of food as medicine, and trying that out on ourselves. And even my husband at 32 years old was on high blood pressure medication. I mean, it was 32 years old. It's what's going on? So
did he have a family history of that as well? Was that? No. Huh.
No, I mean, his grandmother lived until she was 98 years old and never had a health issue to speak of. Wow. And so, yeah, he did not have, it's not something that runs in his family. And when he was on the blood pressure medication, we started doing paleo, we were doing CrossFit. And he started getting lightheaded, and his blood pressure started reading like super low,
right?
Because we had done all these things. And he went back to the doctor, and he's like, "Yeah, you need to come off of this."
Yeah,
and
right.
So
right.
from that point on, we were like, "All right, we're in."
Right.
I guess we're doing this.
So, okay. So, so did the fitness aspect of training? I'm always fascinated by the door that people are willing to walk through. Like, I was the owner of CrossFit LA for many, many years, and I was always of the philosophy that I will go where my member or my student or whatever wants to go. Like, if they wanted, if they walked in the door and wanted to go down the fitness road, we would go down the fitness road. I never forced nutrition or any other aspect on anyone until they were ready. And I'm just curious for you guys, how did that come about? Because I'm guessing that CrossFit pulled you in for the fitness part, and then perhaps the nutrition came next, or...
Yeah. And I had always been like a super active person, just loved to hike, loved to be outdoors. And that was always why the whole like going to the gym thing never really worked for me.
Yeah.
But then I was never really a runner either, because I was not in shape. Fitness was like, so far back in my priorities. And, but there was something that was fun about going into a gym where you did all these different things, and there was a competitiveness to it. And I'm like crazy competitive to a fault. But there was something about it that was super intriguing. And I mean, we just hit the ground running with it. We started with boot camp. And so it was outdoors, and found that I loved to run. And I actually, once I was in shape, I was good at it. And then we started going into the gym for workouts and different competitions. And so not even really thinking about the diet piece of it, but we started to see so many improvements just in our physical well-being from being active.
Right.
And then from there, it was like you started to notice from a competitive standpoint that like, oh, well, I've gotten to this certain point at doing something and not like, I'm not improving past that.
Yep.
And so I think that's where the nutrition piece came in, and I started to understand that, especially, as you go through the aging process, that you can only do the burgers and fries and beer and work out at a high level for a certain amount of time before your body's just like, yeah, I'm done. Mm-hmm. And so we had kind of gotten to that point where it was like, okay, we've got to change our diet, because we were, we started out with the zone diet, and I was actually in my kitchen one day, and I was zoning a corn tortilla with shredded Kraft cheese. And then I think I had like avocado on the side or something. And I was looking at it, and I was like, wow, the only thing healthy on this plate is actually the avocado. That's a problem.
Right.
And that was where it was like, all right, we need to do something different from a nutrition standpoint. And the BTB in Atlanta was actually the gym we were members of. And they were starting to really incorporate some of the paleo templated nutrition. Mm-hmm. And so I tricked my husband into trying it for a weekend, and he was willing to do it for 30 days after that.
Cool.
So
cool.
Yeah, fitness first, then the nutrition piece of it. Yep. And then as we've gotten, further and further down the line, it's interesting, starting a food business, that the stress management has also come into play. So it's like, you can work out, and then if you're not, and then you eat right. And then the next part of it is the stress management and all of the stresses that we put on ourselves and our society, and the being connected 24/7, and especially being an entrepreneur and starting a business from the ground up, being really mindful about that, that part of the journey too, because I can do all these other things right, but if I'm not managing the stress, then, all of the other stuff is for naught.
Yeah, I remember one time we had Mark Sisson come out and talk at CrossFit LA, because he lives in Malibu, and this was really early on. God, it must have been in 2009 or 2010 or something. And he said once, he was like, I drink what red wine. I have a glass or two a night. I don't know what he's doing now, but and he said, who's to say that the stress relief that I get from enjoying that glass of wine is less significant, is more damaging because of the, because of the sugars and whatnot that elevate my blood sugar. than the stress relief I get from the enjoyment of that glass of wine. Like, how do you measure that? How do you measure
Right.
those two things? And it's very difficult. I know he's also done some experiments with not drinking at all, and then I got turned on to Dry Farm Wines, which is a low sugar version of red wine. Not a version; it is red wine, but it's very, very low sugar.
Yes, we heart dry farm wine in our house.
Yeah, I love it. My wife is she's very persnickety about taste. I'm not. I don't. Yeah, I mean, basically, you waste a really good bottle of wine on me because I'm good. Anything under like $25, and I'm happy. I could drink a $5 bottle of wine. I could also drink a $25 bottle of wine. But if it goes above that, I can't really taste the difference.
Yeah, I'm with your wife on that one. I'm bratty when it comes to the taste of wine, and I make.
Yeah, she doesn't like all the wines that come in the Dry Farm Wines case. So
they're lighter.
Drink them. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to really like a Pinot Noir or a lighter style. They don't have that, big full-bodied American cab wine. Right. But I got a box not too long ago that had probably 3 like medium to bigger bodied wines. They're starting to source like a little bit further out in Europe. Yeah. And
I've noticed some Austrian wines coming in now, and that's really cool.
Yeah, there was a Slovenian wine that was unbelievable. Oh, wow. Cool. I couldn't believe. I was like, "This is delicious." So yeah, I can talk about wine all day too. But.
Well, tell me. So, when did you get the idea that you wanted to start something? Like, what was the impetus for that?
So we, when we moved to Charlotte, we were running the paleo challenges within our gym. They had always done like a yearly nutrition challenge. And so we started helping the owner of the gym run the nutrition challenge. And because of our experience with paleo, that's just what we defaulted to. Yeah. And so we noticed that we would run these 30-day challenges, and then after 30 days, people would fall off the wagon. And these were people that had seen improvements in the gym, had like a major health issue, start to get better. They had dropped a ton of weight. I mean, they were seeing all these amazing results. And then after 30 days, it was like those amazing results weren't enough for it to be a lifestyle change. Yep. And so really looking into the psychology of that, and now, and especially in Charlotte, I mean, Charlotte's like a super busy market. Like, it's young professionals. There's a lot of banking here. There's a lot of power company. There's a lot of, everybody goes into uptown, they go into a high-rise building and they stay there for 12 hours and then they go home, right? And they hit the gym on the way home. And so just the environment of it, I started seeing these folks just kind of fall off the wagon at day 35 and day 40. And I started thinking, like, I wonder if they actually had, food prepared and ready to go, then, would they stick with it a little bit longer? Mm-hmm. And my interest, on the food side as well, was sourcing. And so when we started eating paleo, one of the things that really bothered me about the template and people going that way, that style of eating, was they weren't really paying attention to the protein and where the protein came from, or where the fats were coming from, or even the vegetables. And so I would go to the farmer's market, and I would go to like 5 different places to gather all of the ingredients for the food that I was going to cook on Saturday and Sunday for the rest of the week for Carter and I. And we had some friends come over for dinner because we were in the middle of a challenge, and they would come over on Sunday night and eat. And one of the girls said, "Hey, would you cook extra and I'll bring you Tupperware, and then do what you're doing for Carter and yourself, but do it for 3 people." And I was like, "Sure, no problem." So I did that for a couple of weeks, and she told a friend, and then that friend asked me to do it. And it just kind of like snowballed into going and renting commercial kitchen space and starting a business. So,
did you have a background in cooking? Like, how did you? Wow.
I'm a good cook. That was one of the things that I learned from my mom and my grandmother. They were amazing self-taught cooks. And I was always really resistant to cook with my mom until I got a little bit older, and then I loved it. But I used to get really mad at her when she would want me to like come in the kitchen and cook with her. I was like, oh, I have no interest in that. And it's hysterical to me now that I actually started a food company.
Right. Totally.
So the times before I was like, I'm not going to cook.
Right.
So yeah, no background in cooking other than I was good at cooking for myself and my family. And I was really interested in sourcing and pasture-raised proteins, and that's kind of where it started.
You know, the sourcing piece is such an interesting piece. There's such a level of, I think, for modern people, and I'm speaking a lot from me because I, as an entrepreneur myself, and as a, husband, and my wife is a full-time working person in Hollywood. She has a very stressful job and very, she has her life. She's not going to take the time to do what you did for your family. And so, a lot of that relied on me, and I was very driven to doing the things I was doing, not creating a business around food or, doing stuff around food. So for me, eating well was making the right choices around what the food, like the macronutrients and the proteins and the fats and the carbohydrates, not necessarily, it had to be convenient. It had to be easy. It had to be like a one-stop, I could go to Whole Foods. Whole Foods is basically, the easiest one-stop shop. But, it's funny, once you get about 30 miles outside of LA, like in LA, there are Whole Foods, everywhere. It's kind of crazy how populated Whole Foods is around LA. But we did a corporate retreat about 6 months ago, and I was looking for a place. We're going up to Big Bear, and I was looking for a Whole Foods to go to stop in for lunch for everybody. Once you left once you got past the freeway, the 110 freeway, then the Whole Foods like drops off the map. They just cease to exist. And I started to think about all these people that live out they're not even in the middle of nowhere. LA is sprawling to the east, 60 miles out, 70 miles out, and there are no Whole Foods. And what do you do? Where do you go to get I just lean on Whole Foods as my place because I trust the brand and I trust that they're sourcing, and they're not even 100%, sourced well.
Right.
So, it's a challenge. It's a really cool that that's a big piece of the way you're doing your business.
Well, and it was really interesting too when we started. Charlotte's a medium-sized city, and we didn't have a Whole Foods. We had an Earth Fare, which is a more southeast or like eastern seaboard, smaller version of a Whole Foods type market. And then we had another local one called Healthy Home Market, which actually is no longer in business. And so it was really, it was tough to go to any market in Charlotte and find grass-fed beef. You were forced, if you wanted to have pasture-raised meats, you had to go to the farmer's market. Right. And so, then when you're talking about a fully cooked meal, there wasn't a restaurant that you could go and get a pasture-raised protein, on your plate, and a place that was paying attention to the types of oils that they were cooking in. And, it just didn't exist. And so I think that, at the time, that's where, it wasn't just the convenience. It wasn't available here. Right. And when we started, we were delivering to local gyms in the Charlotte metropolitan area. And then we grew out into other places in North Carolina, and then even into South Carolina, Tennessee, and into Virginia, because, Charlotte didn't have a Whole Foods, but the closest Whole Foods at the time, I think, was in Asheville, which was 2 hours away from us. And then the next closest one was in Raleigh, which is 3.5 hours away. So we didn't, for where we're located, you would think we would have a lot more access to, healthy Whole Foods and well-raised proteins. And, but it really, you had to go to the farmer's market to get them.
Yep. So, okay. So your business grew, you moved into a commercial kitchen, you were growing, you're doing it mostly, I'm guessing, for the people in your community that were just referrals, word of mouth.
Yeah, we started, the gym we were attending in Charlotte, and actually still do, is Ultimate CrossFit. And we would cook. So I would go in. So I was I was a one-woman show. I would take the orders via text, email, phone call, Facebook Messenger.
Wow.
And then I would compile it all into my little spreadsheet. And then I would guess at how much food I needed, because again, like no background for, you know, increasing a recipe. And would figure all that out, would prep all the food, cook all the food, package the food, and then we would distribute it. Now, from the cooking part on, I had amazing friends and family that would actually volunteer to come in and help me distribute the orders. And when we first did this, it was in brown paper bags, and we would just handwrite somebody's name on it and how many meals. And actually, we only had 10 meals to start with. Like you couldn't choose your meals. It was like, this is what we're cooking, so you better like it. And then we would go and sit at Ultimate CrossFit on Sunday, myself or Carter or one of our volunteers, and they would go and sit on our big igloo cooler that we bought. And they would wait for people to come and pick up their food, and we would take check or cash. And then when I got really super sophisticated, I had one of those little Stripe swipey things.
Yep.
And that was when we hit the big time. And when we got to about 40, it was like 40 or between 40 and 60 customers, I was like, okay, I can't take orders from text message anymore. I've got to I've got to have a website. So I started, Carter has a graphic design background. And so he created a logo, and we had this little landing page, and it was attached to a PayPal account. And so I would manage everything from this little website. And then that got to a point once we were over about 100 customers that wasn't manageable any longer. And so,
you were still doing all the cooking at 100 customers, 100 people.
Well, about 6 months in, I hired our first employee, and he's actually still with us. His name is Brandon. Wow. And he's one of our chefs. And I mean, like, bless his heart, as we say in the South, because he came into I was a hot mess at the time because I was doing everything, you know, and no cooking background whatsoever. So I was just like this tornado of like, here's the recipe. This is what we're cooking. Here's all the stuff. I think I have everything. If not, then just let me know so we can change the ingredients that are going to go on the label.
And were you still at this point making sure that you were sourcing it from, you know, you were going to farmers markets and you were going to places that you knew the food was really high quality?
Yes. And that, I mean, we would go, I would go on Saturday there was a little farmer's market not far from where our commissary kitchen was. And I had become pretty good friends with one of the grass-fed beef farmers that was there. And so I would get my beef from her. And occasionally I would actually have to drive out to her farm because she wouldn't always have what I needed at the farmer's market. But I mean, I was pretty much sourcing everything from the Atherton farmer's market.
Wow.
Once we were about 8 months in where that was not an option anymore. And we have a distributor here called Eastern Carolina Organics. And so once we got about 8 months into the business, I had to start really looking at distributors. So we're using Eastern Carolina Organics. There's another one called Leading Green. And these folks were actually going regionally to get food. And so I had access to a lot more variety of vegetables, a lot more variety of different types of proteins. And then we started working with Albert's Organics, which is a UNFI distributor that focuses on the fresh food side. So like Whole Foods uses Albert's and UNFI. And it's been really interesting too, because that was one of the biggest, probably one of the biggest barriers in getting a business like this started was the distribution piece of it, is getting the food to somebody like me that was going to provide this product. So it's been really cool to see over the past like 6 or 7 years how much that has changed. I mean, we use US foods for like our tinfoil and trash bags and stuff like that. And, you know, our relationship with them, we've actually been able to push them to start carrying grass-fed beef and from Hickory Nut Gap, which is one of the primary farms that we use now in Asheville. And we've been able to create the demand in Charlotte so that one of these big distributors has to carry this type of product. And then it makes it cost effective for us to, work with a farm that's in Asheville that's doing everything that we need him to do. He's got organic pasture. He's doing 100% grass-fed beef. He's got great organic, non-GMO pork. And so if it wasn't for U.S. Foods being willing to carry these types of products, it makes it a lot more difficult for companies like ours to do what we're doing.
Right. How did you continue dealing with the growth and the distribution once you got the meals made? Like, there's just so many issues I can imagine you've had to deal with that are just overwhelming in my mind. How in the world did you do this?
Well, that competitive thing came back.
Packaging. What did you put them in? And how did you...
Yeah, I just have this mind that goes 100 miles an hour, and I always have these ideas, and most of them don't work. But then occasionally I'm like, oh, that worked. That's amazing. Let's do that.
Right.
And, the competitive piece, I think, has played a huge role in starting this business because, when you start a business from the ground up and there's no template and there's no guidebook, nobody handed me a book and said, okay, this is how you start your franchise called modPALEO. Mm-hmm. Then you just you have to have that crazy drive that you're not going to fail. Right. And so, with the packaging, going to the farmer's market, I would see how the farmers had the raw meat packaged, and it would be frozen and it was in a vacuum seal. And I'm like, hey, what's that? How do you get it to be packaged like that? And lo and behold, there's these little tabletop VacMaster machines that you can vacuum seal and get a longer shelf life or freeze something without it getting freezer burn.
I think they sell something like that at Costco.
Oh, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never bought one, but I think they do.
Well, I did.
Right, of course.
Several of them.
12.
Yeah. Bought a lot of them. So that was kind of our first iteration of our packaging. They were in these little plastic bags, and it was almost like you could boil in a bag.
Right.
And I knew that by vacuum sealing them, I could get a longer shelf life than in the to-go containers that I was using. And so then it was like, oh, then I can just deliver once a week, and then everybody can come to the gym. They're going to the gym anyway. And then we can just have it in a bag for them, and then they can just grab it, and then they can take it out of the bag and heat it up however they want, or they can boil it in a bag. Cool. Let's do that.
Yep.
And so we did that for several years, and we had 42 delivery locations in North and South Carolina.
So you were just local only?
Yeah.
Yep.
And we had a situation where our delivery truck broke down in South Carolina, and Carter went to pick the driver up, and they had to have the truck towed. We, thank goodness, had delivered everything, so we didn't have an issue there. But the next week we were going to have a pretty significant delivery issue.
With 42 delivery locations, were they individual people's homes, or were they places that had a big collective refrigerator and you stuck them in there and then people came and got them? Yep.
So they were primarily CrossFit gyms, but we had some chiropractors' offices, and then just some other massage therapy complexes and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So with 42 delivery locations, we had a delivery truck. We had 42 refrigerators we had to manage and make sure that they were up to snuff. We had to manage any product, if somebody went to get their meals and they weren't there because they were just in this refrigerator. Yeah. And so it was a lot to manage. And the day that the delivery truck broke down, I realized this is not scalable the way we're doing it.
Right.
We were great up until now, and really started thinking outside of, how do we scale this business and make this type of product available to other cities like Charlotte that, we've got some resources, but not the kind of resources that, like you were saying in LA, there's a Whole Foods on every corner. So you can default to that with no problem as long as you're within that city limit.
Yep.
And so we started looking into what it would take to ship fresh food. and what it would take to, get the inspections that we needed to deliver over state lines. And that was really when I decided that we needed to ship directly to people's homes. And we did both for a while. We did the different local gym delivery places in Charlotte and even outside of Charlotte for a little while. But then the more and more we got into this, and the more I saw our market kind of changing outside of just folks that would go to a CrossFit gym, that more and more people were more concerned about what they were eating and not necessarily about going into a gym. People would not use our service because they were intimidated to go into a gym as well. Right. So we were missing a big piece of our market because, there were a lot of folks that were really wanting to change their lifestyle and their nutrition, but they didn't want to walk into a CrossFit gym every week. So that's when we started toying around with home delivery, and we decided to do 100% home delivery at the end of 2016.
It's fairly recent.
Yeah. And when we went to 100% home delivery, we also, when talking about, limiting our market, we wanted to get rid of just being the strict paleo template and talk about just eating whole foods. And whatever that meant for you, that worked for you as an individual, then we would help you with that template. And so because we would have folks that wanted to eat primarily on a paleo template, but they needed the caloric density of rice, because of their activity, or they were training for something, or they were, doing ultras, or whatever the reason was. And so they were taking our meals and they were dumping it over rice. And so it was like, all right, well, if that's going to be the case, then let's go find a really healthy heirloom grain rice. And we're lucky enough to be just north of South Carolina. And there's a great company down there called Anson Mills, and they actually go out and find heirloom grains. So they've got this amazing product called Carolina Gold Rice, and it's an heirloom seed type rice, and it's wonderful. And so we started working with them to bring in some of these gluten-free style grains for people to have in their meals when they needed just some more calories, and they were getting it from rice. So we didn't want to be limited by just saying we're a paleo company, that we wanted to be able to provide healthy whole foods and really talking about the sourcing as we're moving through this kind of lifestyle change for people.
How do you manage? I mean, I'm just thinking about the challenges of the unique palates of people, and then the unique calorie requirements of people. How do you systematize that? It seems it seems impossible to me. Obviously you've done it, so it's not impossible, but it seems impossible to me.
We used to make it a lot more difficult than we make it now. And it's funny when you go to make a big change in the business, it's like you always sit there and kind of bite your nails and you're like, I hope my gut's right on this one. Yeah. But we used to actually offer 3 different size meals. So you had a small portion that would typically be for an active female. Then you had a medium-sized portion that would be for an active male. And then you had this like ginormous portion that would be for somebody that, is doing just a ton of cardio. Yep. And we thought, we wanted to make it super flexible. And like you were saying, without having to adjust the recipes on an individual basis, we were trying to come up with what is the best way for people to come in and really have a flexible system. But it was interesting because the more options that we gave people, the more it was almost like it was too much. Yeah. Because they would get confused. And then it was like, well, I just want to have lunch for 5 days a week. So when we rebranded to The Good Kitchen, we actually got rid of all of the different sizes, and we just went with one size that, most of the time I can't finish a whole meal in one sitting, without, actually overeating or eating more than what I need to. But for my husband, it's plenty of food for him. And then for somebody that's a little more active than him, then we just tell people to add a salad to it.
Right.
And so it's been interesting to see how much we've grown and how much the customer satisfaction has increased once we really simplified what the template actually was. So it's actually the more simple you make it, then the more people, I think, understand how to use it within their day-to-day life.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I first got the meals, they look, because of the way the vacuum seal is sucked down on top of the food, they don't look very big. And I remember opening my first one thinking, God, I was going to need rice. I'm going to need something else to go with this, and I'm thinking, don't do the bread that's in the fridge, because my son is 10 and we have Ezekiel bread for him. But, I was shocked. I was surprised. I'm like, okay, this is plenty of food. I don't need any more food. I usually put oil on top of most of the food I eat because I try to maintain a ketogenic, I try to maintain my ketones and higher fat. But other than that, I haven't had to modify any of the foods, unless I've done a long fast and I'm, super empty.
Yeah, they're pretty dense. And it is funny because when we'll do events where we've got the meals in front of us and we're talking through, the whole spiel to people, and they look at it and it's like, well, that's not going to be enough food for me.
Right.
I'm like, trust me, it'll be plenty.
Yeah, right. What, when you transitioned from being a local delivery service to a national ship to your house, what were some of the challenges you experienced? I mean, that seems like a very big transition. And did you lose local clients? Did it become more expensive for your customers to get that service? And how did you do all that?
I think the way that the business evolved, and we would do things and we would phase things out, so it wasn't like an abrupt change for people. There were customers that had to get used to the fact that they weren't going to the gym to pick up their meals any longer. But we still have customers that we had at the very beginning with us today here in Charlotte. I think change is hard for people, but you just kind of understand that when you're making business changes, because you know that it's going to be the best thing for the business, and you hope that people stick around and understand that. And for the most part, our customers have been incredibly understanding, and they've stuck with us. And it was funny when we changed our name. I didn't expect. People get really attached to a brand.
Yeah, they do.
And so when we changed the name, it was like, we had customers like, are you not Paleo anymore? Did somebody buy you? Like, what's going on? And I'm like, nope, still Amber and Carter. We're good. and so once, they had that personal connection, they understood that nothing had really changed. We had just changed our name and rebranded the company. It was like, a deep sigh of relief from several of our customers. But, consumers get really emotionally attached to something, especially when you're talking about food. There's such an emotional attachment to what people consume for their nutrition that, if you think about it, we're in their house every day, and we're and they get very attached to us. And so, that was a little bit of a learning curve and kind of an unexpected thing when we did the rebranding. But for the most part, I think everybody's been really excited to see our growth. Everybody that's seen us from when we first started as modPALEO and what it's grown into, it's really fun to run into people that, were with us in the first month or two of the business. And they're like, so how's everything going? And they're like, we see you everywhere now. And that's really cool and humbling. And that's why I do it, to see how we help somebody, and that we've been providing a product for somebody over 7 years just like floors me. It like I get the warm fuzzies when I think about that. Right.
Yeah, you're really making a difference. I mean, and food is such a foundational piece of who we are. I mean, you are what you eat, and nothing could be more true than that statement. And I know that the peace of mind that I get when I reach into the fridge and grab one of your meals, knowing that it's where it's from and that it's where the food is sourced and how the food is cooked, and that I don't have to think. I don't even really have to think, which one do I want? I do that. And I find myself sometimes like, oh God, how do I pick from what I've got? But usually I'm like, okay, well, stop that. Just open one. I had one 2 weeks ago that was a vegetable stew, and I typically don't. I think it was called the winter vegetable something or other. And typically I don't really enjoy meals without protein in them. And this is a vegetarian option, and it was freaking delicious. Oh my gosh. I mean, I opened up a can of sardines because I wanted to have some protein to go with it. So I didn't put the sardines in it because I was worried that would really kind of screw up the flavors. But boy, that was so good. I'm glad I didn't.
That's so good to hear. I love that.
Yeah, it was really, really good. When you think back, I loved your story about the breakdown of the truck, like kind of a surprise, almost failure. Were there any other significant surprises that took place, either failures or successes, that you remember along the way that were like, oh God, this could have tanked our business, or thank God we thought of this in time to not tank the business?
Gosh, that's a big question. I would say the website. The website has been the technology piece has been the bane of my existence for a long time.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that's been a big learning curve for us. We started as a food company, and then we were like, all right, well, that's fun. Let's get into logistics and distribution now. And so we're like, all right, we got that. And then but we're a technology company.
Right.
Right. And that's something that never really, it was one of those things that we didn't start out to be an online food delivery service. We set out to provide healthy meals, and delivered to CrossFit gyms. So the evolution of that has been a huge learning curve. And now from the technology side, I feel like we have everything buttoned up. And we're always improving on it. We're always changing because the technology piece of it just changes so often. Yep. And how you get to your customers and, the customer experience, and then the new bells and whistles that you can do with the customer experience. So we're always looking to improve those sorts of things. But, I would say there have been 4 iterations of our website from when we started as modPALEO and we just had a landing page and we were processing payments through PayPal, all the way to where we are today as The Good Kitchen, and, having a robust, customized online ordering system. Yep. And, but that's been, there have been times where when we launched from being a recurring model, but people wanted to choose their meals, that was one of the times where I was like, oh gosh, I hope we make it through this.
Right.
Because,
when you say choose their meals, do you mean choose the type, like they want paleo, or they want keto, or they want South Beach, or they want Mediterranean, or do you mean like the specific, I want... The specific meals. Okay.
Because in our first actual online ordering system, people in the notes, they would actually say, hey, can I get that chicken dish? So we would have folks that would write what they wanted in the notes section. And it was like, all right, so people want to be able to choose their meals. So how can we do that? And at the time, there was not a technology that would allow you to do a one-time order plus a recurring order on the same system. Yep. And be able to choose their meals from a menu that changes every single week.
Right.
So we've got a pretty complex system or thing that would have to be solved from a development standpoint. And so we switched over from our original website onto an e-commerce platform. And with that e-commerce platform, we weren't able to do recurring any longer. And so we went probably 3 or 4 months Actually, no, it wasn't that long. It was about a month without any recurring at all. And that was like, okay, people would rather just set their subscription and not have to worry about it than come in and choose their meals. So we need to get that incorporated immediately back into our business. And there were some technology issues with the folks that we were using that kind of caused that to happen, to not have the recurring any longer. But we ended up implementing PayPal back in, which I was like, darn it, got to get PayPal back in there. But then we managed our recurring and our one-time orders separately for about a year and a half. And then we went on to a new platform where everything was done in one back end.
What is the platform you're on now? What's it?
Magento.
Magento. And that's a solution that is a customizable solution that for businesses like yours, is available for other businesses to use?
Yeah, so it'll have like Magento. The good thing about Magento is that you've got templates that you can code against. So it's like it's a nice blend of customizable, but without the expense of having to build a customized website from scratch. And so it gives you the ability to get a website up and going. And then from a business standpoint, you can really manage the back end without having to depend heavily on your developers.
Do you have developers on your team? Like, is that part of your business?
Yeah,
part of your team? So are they just running Magento, or are they maintaining your website, which is the coordination between your customers and Magento?
So our developers primarily will make improvements on the customer experience side, and then also on the back end. And then anytime that we're going to launch a new landing page or anything like that, will typically involve Carter. My husband also works in the business, and he's more of like the creative development person. And then we've got several customer service folks that work behind the scenes in conjunction with the developers, with any issues that customers may have, or if there's, a new piece of functionality that they continue to see that becomes a customer service issue. Like if we have somebody calling and several people with the same question, then it's like, okay, is there something from a development standpoint that we can do to fix that, so that it's not an issue for the customers when they come to the website. So it's kind of a team of people that attack this from different angles. But we've got 2 developers that work on this on a part-time basis.
Okay, cool. How do you deal with there seems like there's an immediacy to the ordering and the sourcing, the food coming in, the delivery. Like a lot of things have to happen. I guess it's much like a restaurant. You just have a really, really big restaurant. Right? I mean, is there a day of the week? Like, what is the process like? Is there a day of the week that all your deliveries come in, and then like a day that your chefs cook for 48 hours straight, and then a day that somebody else comes in and ladles all the food into the packet? Like, how does that all work? It's like the Ford Motor Company building a car. You you must have some massive assembly line.
We do. That's exactly what it is. So we typically will get all of our deliveries on Friday, Sunday, and Monday. And that's all of our raw good ingredients. And then they start to prep on Sunday and Monday. And then they start packaging on Tuesday morning. And so they'll be cooking and packaging throughout the rest of the week. So we're pretty much a 6-day-a-week facility.
Okay.
And then distribution starts on Thursday evening sometimes, depending on the number of orders. But typically they distribute Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and into Monday. And then FedEx comes on Monday and everything goes out.
Well, when you say distribute, what do you mean? Because just
putting meals into boxes.
Oh, got it. Okay. So the meals, you must have like big walk-in refrigerators that these boxes sit inside of and wait until FedEx comes and gets them. And
we have rooms, refrigerated rooms.
Is this space you own, or is this space you rent in a big, huge
lease?
Lease, got it. And it's a commercial kitchen space, this whole place?
Yeah, we're out at a corporate park that's near the airport. So we're really close to the FedEx hub.
Right.
And so they bring a big old tractor trailer in on Monday afternoon for our home delivery. And then Express comes in a little bit later with another truck. And then we send all of our Express orders out.
I mean, how many are we talking about? How many orders a week can you divulge those kinds of numbers? Like, I'm just curious, like, how big is your restaurant?
How big is your restaurant? Let's see. Last week we had probably a little under 700 orders go out.
Wow.
And so we do that on a weekly basis.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And from any...
How many chefs does it take to prepare that many meals?
So we have an executive chef, and then we have like a kitchen production manager. And then beneath them, there's probably 4 or 5 cooks. And then we probably have 2 or 3 prep folks. And then we have 4 packagers. So that put the food in the tray and run it through the packaging machine and the banding machine.
Yep. And then who orders all the food?
Our executive chef.
Oh, got it. And they're not going to the farmer's market and doing this. They're doing this online with,
Yeah. And we work directly with some of our farms, and then other products we get through distributors. We work a lot with Albert's Organics. I had mentioned Hickory Nut Gap. U.S. Foods actually delivers from their farm for us. And then when we also work with White Oak Pasture down in Georgia, and they actually have a truck that goes from their place in Georgia up into the DC, New York area. And so they stop by our facility on the way and drop off our stuff. So we get pork and beef from them as well.
How often are you guys changing the menu and adding new meals and new recipes and doing new stuff? And how much in advance do you have to do that so that you don't break the system?
So finally, for the first time in the history of the company, we have a year's worth of menu items. And so we go through 4 or 5 seasons. And then we have a 3-week rotation within each of those seasons. And we will typically do like a chef special or something like that for each of those weekly menu items, so that we do get some variety and new things. Or if there's something that one of the chefs are excited about and they want to try, preparing a new recipe, then we'll do it that way. But it took us probably 2 or 3 years to get that kind of menu created on a seasonal basis. Because that's the other part of this too, is we want to be seasonal without people getting tired of eating the same thing.
Yep.
So our menu changes on a weekly basis for the folks that want all that variety. But then we also have a few like fan favorites that stay on a menu on a consistent basis, because then there are also the folks that they want to eat the same thing every single week. And so we usually have about 3 or 4 menu items that we'll keep on a consistent basis, or they'll come on every other week or something like that. And then we've got the rest that'll give folks variety for the folks that want to eat different things.
How much in advance are your chefs that want to come up with a new thing? Because it's seasonal, right? So it can't be like they're planning, a new dish for, next summer. I guess it could. But probably not. How much in advance do they have to come up with this idea and then get it to the person who has to order all the food and like put it in the system? Is that a long lead time?
Not really. I mean, they can conceptually, they know what's going to be available different times of the year, right? So we're not going to, in the dead of winter, be looking at summer squashes for our menu items.
Or strawberries or something like that, right? Right.
Yeah, but they know like, oh, okay, well, summer or spring's coming up and I'd really like to do something with zucchini. Then they can essentially create the recipe, around what they're going to use. And then when the time comes, then, we just have to know about 2 weeks in advance of what we're going to order. So that's where having the menus created has been really helpful, because we've been able to know what we need to order several weeks in advance and not, the week before, and then everybody's scrambling to make sure we have everything in the kitchen.
Yeah, right. How and then do you basically take a recipe and say, okay, I'm going to make a ketogenic version of this, a Mediterranean version of this, I'm going to make a paleo version of this, and you use the same recipe and then develop the diet plan around it? Is that how you do it?
Yeah. So before, and I would say that we've been doing that for probably the past like 6 to 9 months. And that has actually worked really well for us, so that when folks come to the website, they have the different options and they're not really missing out on something just because it has rice in it. Then they can get the version that has cauliflower rice. And that's actually been really popular with our customers. And so we'll develop, and we don't do that for every meal, but we will do it for a handful of meals so that there's different options for people to choose from. Okay.
That's cool. Man, I mean, one question I also had is, that there's this thing that I experience because I'm an Amazon Prime person. I love shopping online. I do as much as I possibly can. I really like going to stores. But I don't like dealing with the boxes and the packaging and having to throw away peanuts and those stupid, those air things now that I am very meticulous about cutting them every time, because I don't want them to fill just space with air in them in a garbage area. How do you, one of the things we ordered food for a while from, not Blue Apron, the other one, there's a
Hello
bunch.
Fresh.
Not Hello Fresh. It was
Plated,
Sun Kitchen, Sunbasket.
Yeah.
And they had this really innovative cold pack that that was biodegradable. It came in a plastic seal and you cut it open and they said it was made from some sort of cotton and water and you just dump the whole thing in your green trash can. It was great.
Yeah.
How do you guys think about those? I'm sure you're thinking about that. Like, how do you, and where are you in the realm of moving more towards, let's not fill up our what are they called? I was going to say garbage dumps, but landfills. Landfills.
I know. I went completely blank there too. I was like, what is that called?
Yeah, landfills with all this crap.
Yeah. So we've gone through several iterations for our packaging, and that's something that we are always so mindful about because we talk about sustainability and sourcing and being mindful of, our footprint. And we've gone through, like I said, several iterations. I
love the insulation, by the way. The insulation that comes now is, in a cardboard box and you can just put it in the blue trash can.
Yeah. And it's a recycled material made into something else. That's what I really like about our inserts now, because we actually use this great product that I was so excited about until I kind of really thought through it. It was a corn-based product and it was compostable. And so you literally could put it in your compost pile. You could put it in your garden. You could put it underwater and it would dissolve.
Wow.
It would also dissolve if it got wet on the way.
That was insulation? It was
like an insulator, just like the liners that are in the box now.
Yep.
But they would, with moisture, they would dissolve.
That's not good.
No, but you had to really get it wet to get it to dissolve. The problem that I had with that is it wasn't the material that it was coming from wasn't something that had been something else. And so we were creating something to be waste. And so we really we were like, all right, well, there's got to be a product out there that is something recycled into these liners. And so that's where we found our current liners, and it's recycled plastic bottles into these liners, and they can be recycled curbside along with your cardboard. And then the ice packs too. And a lot of people don't know this, but the stuff that's inside the ice packs is non-toxic. And so you can actually just cut it and it's compostable as well.
It is?
And it's and it's
why don't they put that? Cause I was looking last week at my box and I'm like, oh God, I got to throw this in the black trash can. It's not nothing. I can't do anything with it. I hate that.
Yeah, it's non-toxic. I mean, you can put it in your house plants and it actually will help them retain water. Yeah.
Wow. Well, they should print that. Why don't they have a stamp on that? You can put this in your compost.
We're working on it.
Oh, great. Awesome.
But yeah, and then that, the other part, what was I going to say? The other part that we really encourage people to do is not order every week, because the shelf life of our meals, you can order every other week and have meals for the 2 weeks, because you've got a 14-day shelf life in the refrigerator on the meal. So if you're getting 5 meals every week, you're going to have the box and the liners and the ice packs every single week. But if you just order
10 meals every 2 weeks,
every other week.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, that's great.
Yep. And so we really encourage people to do that they're ordering every other week, or you can even get bulk meals once a month. You will have to throw some in the freezer. But we just encourage, we can fit into that lifestyle without having to have all the waste. So when that is a concern for folks, that's what we typically will suggest. And even like getting it on a weekly basis, that's like my new mantra. Like, don't get them every week. Get them every other week.
Right. Do you get food delivered to you, even though do you participate in being a customer of your own company?
I do. I don't have them actually shipped to me. But we will, I'll have them shipped to me occasionally without people knowing that it's getting shipped to me, just so we can look at it and really understand the customer experience. Or we'll ship it to like the customer service manager or something like that. But we always will do kind of that secret shopping, even though it's usually not that secret, just to kind of see how it arrives and how does the shipper treat the box, and, what are our customers seeing when they arrive. And then we have to do testing as well when we ship the boxes to make sure that they stay cold for a certain amount of time. And so we'll ship them to ourselves with the thermometers in there to make sure that, there's enough ice packs and all of that stuff. So
I think it's pretty amazing to me that it's a cardboard box with a little bit of insulation, and how it's freaking rock cold when it gets to me, and it's traveled across the country, and it's just kind of amazing that that's possible. You don't need a what are those really super expensive coolers that you get at like REI?
Oh, the Yetis.
The Yetis. You don't need a Yeti, to keep your food cold.
I know.
I think it's also really funny. This is totally incidental. I don't. Moms today, I shouldn't say all moms. I don't know actually if it's all moms or not, but in our house, there's this idea that lunch in the morning has to be put in a cold pack, and taken to school in a cold. I never had a cold pack growing up. I mean, I would have cheese and meat and all kinds of stuff in a brown paper bag. I'd take it to school. Sometimes it wouldn't get eaten until 3:00 in the afternoon, and it's fine. I never got sick. Is that bad? Are we just more evolved now, or are we over careful?
I don't know. That's a really good question. And I can't speak for all the moms out there because I'm not a mom, but I remember, I'm with you. When I was a kid, I would go to summer camp and my lunchbox would sit outside in the sun in North Carolina with a ham and cheese sandwich inside of it with mayonnaise.
Absolutely. I'm 100%. I mean, maybe I did get sick and I didn't know it, but I don't really have any recollection of that. And it just strikes me as, my wife will not send him to school without the cold pack in the cold pack sealed lunch pail. And I'm like, really? And even for snacks, like he has a separate thing for snacks and the snack is going to get eaten within 2 hours. So I don't know. It's funny. It's a whole nother thing.
And with our kids' meals, we actually designed the kids' meals to go into like one of those little So Young lunch boxes. And the lunch boxes come with a little ice pack that matches the lunchbox. So like like our kid product has the ice pack that goes in the lunchbox, and
that's cool.
Cold. Yeah.
So I want to shift gears a little bit because we've been talking about what, your business and but I want to shift gears and talk a little bit about you.
Awesome.
How do you're a incredibly hardworking, busy entrepreneur, wife. How do you keep it all together? What are some of the strategies you use in your personal life, in your personal day? What are the things that are non-negotiable in your schedule that have nothing to maybe have everything to do with business and maybe have nothing to do with business?
Yeah.
That keep you, operating well.
I have to be outside at least once a day. That's really important to me. And we were talking earlier, I live right in the middle of the city. So it does take effort sometimes to get into a quiet place. Mm-hmm. But that's something that probably it's a non-negotiable, but it doesn't happen every single day, as much as I would like for it to. But really having quiet space, reflection. I do a lot of meditation. Like that is super important. Like I don't get out of bed. I get out of bed to meditate, but it's like, I don't do anything else. I don't like to talk to anybody. Like in the morning, it's like, I have got to sit down and get my mind right before I really even start my day. So that's been a really important practice that I've started doing over the past 2 years. And it's been insanely helpful for me in managing stress, because we spoke about this before. You can have the activity, you can eat right, but if you're not managing your stress and disconnecting a little bit, then, you're still going to have the health issues and the anxiety and the tension that really only getting into that really quiet, mindful place will resolve. And so that is my absolute non-negotiable, happens every single day.
The meditation.
Yep.
And so what does your morning look like? Like if we take like a snapshot of your morning routine, what time do you get up? What are, how long do you meditate? When do you eat breakfast? All that stuff.
So typically, I get up around 6. And I usually meditate for anywhere between 20 minutes to an hour and a half. So it can actually go as long as an hour and a half. And
do you have a certain, do you wake up with an alarm clock, or do you just let yourself wake up?
I let myself wake up.
Okay. And then, and then how do you decide whether it's going to be an hour and a half or 20 minutes? And do you have a certain technique that you practice in meditation?
Yeah. I do guided meditations, and I'm kind of all over the board. I think it just depends on what I'm in the mood for a meditation, whether it's going to be like a short one, or if I know that I have something to do and I'm on a time constraint, then that will typically, I'll be on a shorter time frame. But yeah, it really is just kind of what I'm in the mood for.
And is there an app that you use for this, or do you have a source for your guidedness? Your guided
several
meditations?
Different ones, actually. I use Headspace, Calm, and then there's a lady, Kelly Howell, that I do quite a bit. I really like her meditations. I do a little bit of Joe Dispenza. And some Mind Valley, so Vision Lakiani, do some of that. And I think that's it.
It's funny, we were talking about options before and how you give your customers options, and it's not always a good thing that they have all these options. I can see myself, if I had the number of options you just threw out, being in like, oh God, how do I decide? And I might just not meditate.
Right. Well,
just because they're like, oh my.
It's so funny because when I first started meditating, I couldn't sit still for 2 seconds. I was like, what is this thing that you're making me do? Like, I can't do it. And so I actually started out with, I think it was with the Calm app, because you can say like, how long do you want to sit down and meditate? And I really stepped into, all of the meditations that I just named, have been over the past 2 years. And so now I've gotten into a practice that is my practice and not making myself do it any longer. And so that's where I think all the choices have come. But really starting out, something like a Headspace or a Calm is, and then there's another one called Insight Timer, which is really good. Any of those three, because you can choose how long you want to meditate, whether it's a guided one or if you're just listening to sounds or music or something like that will just kind of bring you down and calm and quiet your mind. Those are great places to start for meditation. Right.
Cool. And so you meditate, you get your 45 minutes in, and you haven't had your coffee yet. You haven't had breakfast. Do you have a room set aside you do this in? Does your husband do it with you? Like, what's it like there at your house?
Yeah, and he's actually a much earlier riser than I am. Like he'll be up at like 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning, and I just can't do that.
Yeah.
I need him a beauty sleep.
Yeah.
But he'll usually come back up and we'll do a meditation together.
Oh, cool.
And typically it'll be just in our bedroom. And occasionally I'll come down into the living room or something like that. We don't have like a dedicated space other than our bedroom for that. And meditate. I always brush my teeth right after I meditate.
Interesting.
TMI.
Yeah. No, that's great. Sometimes they recommend with habits that if you have you connect things, you connect habits, and so that sounds like it serves you really well that you have that ingrained.
I am super connected to brushing my teeth first thing in the morning. I'm actually surprised. And there probably are some days that I wake up and brush my teeth before I meditate.
Yep. Do you ever go to bed without brushing your teeth?
No.
Yeah, see, my wife can't do that either, and I do.
No.
So maybe those are the days I wake up and brush my teeth.
I blame my mom. She made me like so crazy train about my teeth. It's so funny. But yeah, so then I will do a bulletproof coffee in the morning. That's typically my coffee.
Do you use MCT oil? Do you use coconut oil?
I use MCT oil, the Kerrygold butter, collagen, either from Bulletproof or I've been using another one that I really like. I think Vital Protein, maybe.
Yep, the collagen.
Yeah, the collagen.
Yep.
And then I've done between the XCT from Bulletproof and then also the, what's it called? Brain Octane.
And so
I'll kind of go between,
I've only done that one,
between those two. But I really like those oils a lot. Bulletproof. And then I will check email, website stuff, and just kind of look at my calendar and see what I have for the day. And I typically do all of that from home and then go into the kitchen at some point, like mid-morning. And we have a weekly managers meeting. And so on the days that we have that managers meeting, I'm usually a little bit quicker to get out of the house. And then just, whatever meetings I have for the day and get myself set up. And occasionally for lunch, I'll either, for the most part, I'm eating a good kitchen meal. And because I am a customer for lunch for sure. And then at lunchtime, I try to, get out of either the house or the office, wherever I'm working. And like I said, be outside for a minute and get some sun on my face. And from there, usually like late afternoon, especially in the winter, I'm better at doing my activity in the afternoons and evenings than I am in the morning. In the summer, that usually flip-flops. But I try to do something active, whether it's yoga, go for a run.
Some kind of exercise related, not just being outside.
Right. And that's usually later afternoon, or run or walk with the dogs, something like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Or going to CrossFit. Is that when you would go to a CrossFit workout or?
Yeah, occasionally. I've kind of gotten out of the CrossFit workouts right now.
Interesting. Yeah. Yep.
I beat my body up pretty good for many, many years. And so trying to take it easy, and I'll do like body weight type stuff and that sort of thing, more on my own, but I have not stepped foot in a CrossFit gym probably in about 5 months.
Okay. I think that's healthy. I mean, I go through those phases as well. After I sold the gym, it was it was almost a year before I stepped my foot back inside, and I was doing other things.
Yeah.
But just not CrossFit.
And I'm like, who knew? I enjoy yoga. I love it.
Yeah, right. How do you keep yourself, of all the projects you have going on and then your daily to-do list and all that, how do you keep all that stuff organized?
So, I have somebody that helps me organize it when I need it. I set a lot of my meetings and that sort of thing myself. I can't get out of that mindset of like the control factor of controlling my own destiny in that way.
Yep.
I try really hard. And there are times where I'm just like completely overwhelmed. And I'm like, Nicole, I need your help. Please do this. And so, but we use Google for a lot of our things. We also use an app called Wunderlist.
Yep.
That's like a to-do list, which is amazing. And we use Slack for project management, which has been a lifesaver for us because we're all over the place. Sometimes I'm working from home. Sometimes my husband Carter is working from home. We work with Peter that's in Winston-Salem. So he's like 2.5 hours down the road.
Yep.
And then we've got everybody that's in the kitchen, and we've got our developers that are in Italy. And so, we're literally all over the place. And so Slack has been amazing.
So it's interesting you say you use Slack for project management, because we use Slack, but we use it more for just communication. How do you use it for project management?
So we have different channels for different types. So we've got like our Good Kitchen channel that has, within that has customer service to fulfillment to HR to any like specialized project that they're working on. So in those channels, we'll communicate about those. We'll put documents in there that pertain to that project. But then we also have separate channels. We have a completely separate development channel for the Good Kitchen as well. So
when you
we
say
manage
channel,
it with the channels.
When you say a channel, is it one instance of Slack? You know how you can create you can have a whole nother instance of it.
Right.
Do you mean one instance and just different channels, or
no, we actually
instances?
have several different instances.
Oh, wow. Slack. Cool.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that helps us keep everything really separated and really project-based in there.
Right. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And then are you an electronic person? Like, do you have an electronic to-do list? Do you have a written to-do list? Do you keep a steno notebook? Or like, how do you do all that?
Well, I try to write things down, because once I write it, it's in there.
Yep.
But I have a really hard time with going back and looking at things I write down. Electronic is typically better for me because it'll actually be a reminder I can set, and it'll be in front of my face a little bit better. Yeah. But I find like I live by my calendar. If it's not on my calendar, like it's not happening.
Okay.
So I'm sure, like, I just have to make sure that everything gets into my calendar so that I don't lose anything.
But if there's something that you have to do that's not based on a time or a day, where do those go? Where do you put those?
Oh, that'll go in my notebook.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll go in my notebook. And that kind of stuff I will kind of go back and look at, because I typically, if it's a big enough thing that I've said, okay, this is something that I want to work on, and I write it down, it stays there until I actually address it and really flesh out what the project is. And so I've got one of those little moleskin books. Actually, I've got it right in front of me right now, but a little moleskin that is, it's got the date up in the corner, and then it's got the different ways to keep a project organized so that I can... Really, it's like journaling, just journaling thoughts and things that occur to me that would pertain to a certain project or something like that. So I'm kind of on both sides of the fence there with electronics, and then also writing things down.
Yep. Okay, so tell me about bedtime and sleep. Do you have a certain ritual at nighttime that you go through, and then how much sleep do you need to feel rested?
It was for a long time, I was not like, I didn't have to sleep for a long time, and I would have plenty of energy. And I really would only have to get like 6 hours of sleep a night. Over the past 2 years, that's really changed. Like I need a good solid 8 hours to really feel like myself and to feel like I got rest. And so I really do focus on getting the 8 hours of sleep. And actually we're doing the Whole Life Challenge right now. And so that was the one thing, the sleep part of it. I was like, I'm getting 8 hours every night. And so I've actually been successful so far.
Wow,
so that's
awesome. Great.
Yeah. And So I try to be in bed by anywhere between 10 and 11.
Okay.
And because I do want to get at least 8 hours of sleep. And typically before bed, I'll read a little bit, and it's usually on my phone, which is bad.
Yep.
But I have everything on my phone that I want to read. And so, and it's right there. And occasionally I'll even do a meditation before bed, depending on how the day has been. And if I feel like I can't settle my mind down by just
if you're all
reading
wound
something,
up. Yep.
Then I'll do a meditation before bed.
Do you, I'm assuming you read on Kindle on your phone. Is that right? So do you like use the, one of the things I found on the Kindle on the phone is if you make the screen black and then you turn down the thing, you can almost get it really, really soft. And then I like angle it away from my eyes so that it's the glare isn't right. So I think I'm doing, more, as much as I can do to eliminate that blue light. Yeah.
And on my iPad, it does have the option to have the paper white setting on Kindle.
Oh, really? Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's cool.
But I never charge my iPad, and so I end up on my phone anyway. But yeah, I've got the black background, and then I just turn the brightness of the screen down as much as possible.
Yeah, that's what I do too. Yeah. And how is the challenge going for you so far?
Good. And so I have to out myself a little bit, though. The nutrition part has been really hard.
Really? Really? That actually surprises me.
I mean,
I figure that you got down.
Well, so here's the problem. I came off the holidays and I was a hot mess during the holidays. I was like, I'm going to eat whatever I want.
Yeah.
To an extent, because I'm a pretty good eater anyway, but like a cheat for me is like, gluten-free junk food. Mm-hmm. And so came off the holidays, and then I was like, all right, I'm going to do this whole life challenge. I'm really excited about it. And, but my birthday's in February. And so, and it's really just been like the beginning of the challenge, I was spotless. Like I was great. And then birthday month happened. And then
birthday month. Like, couldn't it just be birthday week?
No. The whole month. Birthday month. Started on January 31st.
Oh, man. You got a ways to go.
Yeah.
That's right. Birthday month. Holy cow. Yeah, that's going to derail. That's going to derail a lot of things.
I know. Well, and then we've got a trip planned for a friend of mine's 50th birthday. And I'm like, well, that's going to be a train wreck.
Yeah.
But I'm just moderation.
Right.
Moderation. But I'm taking the hits on my nutrition points.
It's interesting. This is the first time we're doing the challenge. It's only 6 weeks. And it's the first time we're actually only taking a 6-week break between challenges. So the next one begins, let's see, this one ends on I think it's like March 4th or something. I'm not looking at the calendar. And then the next one starts on April 15th, right around tax day. And it's the shortest amount of time we've ever had between challenges. And one of the things that I've discovered over the years of doing this, because I've done every challenge, which I did not set out with the intention of doing every challenge. In fact, I went kicking and screaming. I did not want to do the first one. And but what I found is in repeating this pattern over the years is that I'm way more willing to turn on my level of accountability during those 6 weeks when I know that I've got a break coming up. When I know that 6 weeks later, I'm going to be completely off and I can eat ice cream. I can eat, not that I will, I won't, I don't necessarily go crazy with pizza and ice cream, which are my two things, but I can. And then I know, and then I also find that because I know that another challenge is coming up in 6 weeks, that I'm not stressed out or worried about, oh my God, I'm just losing all of the benefits I got from the challenge. Because I know that less than 6 weeks away, I'm starting again, and I'm going right back into accountability. So there's a cyclic, on-off season, and I wrote an article about it on the blog. But it's been really, really helpful for me to do that. I discovered it kind of accidentally.
Yeah, and I really like the accountability piece of it, because I've been doing, this kind of lifestyle for so long that and I think that's kind of what I experienced towards the end of last year. It's like, you know what? I've been doing this for a long time and I want to like throw the gloves off and I want to have pizza.
Yeah.
And ice cream and French fries. But I like the accountability piece for the activity, the mindfulness. It's like the whole package of like having to sit down and record, whether, you know, somebody else is looking at it or not, has been great, even for somebody like us that, you know, we've been doing this lifestyle for so long, to have some accountability around it, because you think of yourself as an active person, but then it's like, oh, I actually need to record that now. And did I do anything today?
Yeah, right.
So I've really liked that part of it, and having the app, because the app has been fantastic because I am really bad about like sticking with something like that because of the recording piece of it and like not having access to it. And so
and like, having is the app helping because you have a reminder?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
And then I'm like, oh, that's right. I've got to record my stuff today.
Yep.
I've had to use one of my mulligans to go back and
I've used all three of mine. I'm on the Kickstart level, and you'd think I'd have it down. You know, why would I ever need a mulligan? But I've used all three of my mulligans. So,
well, when I started, I thought everybody was doing the highest level, so that's the one that I signed up for first. And Carter and Peter kept talking about, you know, what we could have and what we couldn't have on the challenge, and so I'm like, you can have that on the strictest level? Come to find out, I had signed up for the wrong level.
They're like, no, dummy, come on.
So I went back to Kickstarter. I was like, baby steps, people, baby steps.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Well, thank you so much for taking this time and to talk about your life and your baby and your baby being your business and your your enthusiasm is infectious, and I can see why it's worked so far, because it's, who wouldn't want to, you're very enrolling and kind of just your way of being. It's really, really fun to, to see that, experience that.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And that's been, what's gotten me through is the laughter, the sense of humor, and just having fun with it. So that makes me happy to have that come out. So
how can people find you if they hear this and want to either ask you a question or engage with you? What are the best ways to find you?
Sure. So thegoodkitchen.com/WLC for our website. And I think I've got a Facebook and an Instagram account out there.
Did you say you think? So that might not be a good way for somebody to reach you.
Yeah, no, not on mine. But the business has one. It's at EatTGK. So EATTGK. And we have an amazing Instagram account with lots of yummy pictures and stories. And so it's all about the food.
Are you at Twitter? Do you engage with people personally anywhere?
Well, I do have my own personal accounts, Amber Lewis, on Instagram and Facebook. And then I also have a Twitter account, which is Amber E. Lewis. I'm not on Twitter a ton, but I do keep up with it. Okay.
All right, cool. Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm really appreciative of your time and everything you shared. And thank you so much. This has been great.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me. It's been a lot of fun.
The Whole Life Podcast is produced by our podcast team, Winslow Jenkins, Becca Borowski, and Ernie Hurtado. You can find all of our episodes, links, and complete show notes at wholelifechallenge.com/podcast. The way that I've found is the best way to listen to podcasts is to subscribe so that episodes automatically get delivered right to your mobile device. You can do that in any podcast app on your phone. And hey, if you like the podcast, please do me a favor. Go to iTunes and give it a 5-star rating and recommend it to your friends. I'm Andy Petronic, and thanks so much for listening.